Welcome back to part 4 of The Miner's Gambit, chapter 5 of a Thora Silentblade tale. The two horses, pulling the cart, galloped as quickly as the dwarf deemed safe. About 2 wagons lengths ahead, Zarek was leaned down against the neck of his ride, expertly guiding it in the moonlight and calling out any obstructions on the road ahead. They had to make it. Behind Thora, in the cart area, the dwarf moaned in pain. Dwayne's amazing work with his medical tools had sewn up the gash in the miner's belly and stopped the bleeding for now. After being bandaged up and brought to with some smelling salts, the miner told his tale. Garrett saw the fire, decided to go have a chat with them, the dwarf began. They've always been decent enough neighbors, never causing much of a ruckus. We had animals to trade as meats. The miner coughed a little, clearly having trouble getting the words out in his current condition. The cart bobbed and bumped as it struck rocks in the road, threatening to send them hurling out at any moment. The next thing we knew, there was this bloody screaming and eyes coming at us in the night. We panicked, made the wrong turn, started heading for the mine. When it caught up, it was horrible. It cut into me and were yelling about the mine and the ghosts. Garrett must have told him about it. Thora was too focused on the road to hear much of the detail of what was being said, but the dwarf raised an eyebrow at the mention of ghosts. The soldier hadn't had many dealings with the spectral creatures, but dealing with animal spirits was no laughing matter, from what the elders had said. There were always a few back in the mountains who would tell tales of strange noises or sights in the mines, often explained away as glints off the mithril or a trick of the stone, echoing boots. This miner's tales seemed familiar. Strange sightings in the dark, miners disappearing, bodies being found. It sounded an awful lot like those early days before the invasion came, in full, below the Sakar Mountains. Thor could only pray this was something different. Thor's strong hands tightened on the reins, mentally pushing the miner's tale out of mind. The road. Focus on the road. The dawn's light rose over the horizon as the tired group of heroes pushed onwards. Thor could feel the focus slipping a little, but there was no time for weakness. They had left Wilted Gulch early the day before, had ridden through the night, accomplishing a 2-day trek in just under a full day. The horses were as exhausted as Thora was, and would have to rest soon. They would get their wish, as a few minutes later, a sight both welcome and unfortunate rose before them. The gates to the mine. Were they too late? They could hear screams and shouts from the other side of the large log gate that was closed before them. Leaving the wagon and horses tucked behind a large tree, and the injured miner resting, the group dismounted and prepared to bust in. Moving quickly, Thora ran for the guard tower next to the gate, clambering up as the rest of the group surged through the main doors. Hyenas were chained up everywhere, and a large gnoll chewing on some bloody piece of meat by a large fire. They had one shot to get as many by surprise as possible. The Dragonborn's entrance was definitely a surprise to those behind the door. His large reptilian maw opened wide, letting a stream of lightning stretch across the room, frying several of the hyenas. Up in the guard tower, surveilling the scene below, this seemed like the perfect distraction for Thora. The dwarf pulled out a short bow and took out another hyena before leaping down into the fray with the others. Weaving and swarming around the hyenas, the group began taking them out swiftly as a large gnoll charged in at them to protect the gnoll tribe's pets. The barbaric warrior before them swiped at Thora, trying to break through the dwarf's defenses, but the dwarf was able to deflect the blow away. "We were just going to eat them!" shouted the hyena-faced warrior, seeming surprised at this turn of events. Thora and Dwayne didn't take time to respond as the Toro circled around the gnoll, boxing him in. The wizard shocked the beast from behind, sending arcs of electricity through him as Thora's blades cut deep, bringing the creature to the ground. Pausing for a moment to look around, Thora wondered briefly who the beast on the ground actually was. Did they have a family? Thor had been trained to be efficient, slice first, ask questions later. So really, if the soldier was being honest, which one of them was the beast? Ahead, the elf investigated a large trail of blood, which seemed to be from the remains of some slaughtered animals. It appeared that the donkeys, mules, and other pack animals that the miners had brought with them had been slain and dragged to a large fire to be cooked. There were no immediate signs of the dwarves, but it seemed that they had somehow escaped, and Zarek found tracks indicating they had gone deeper into the mine. The large fire crackled in the room, sending strange shadows across the walls of the mine entrance. To their left stood the darkened tunnels and tracks of the mine, certainly the way the dwarves would have fled. Wiping the gore off both blades, Thora put the philosophical thoughts aside to focus on the mission. Find the miners. Save the miners. Don't think about the ghosts. Simple enough. It was time to hunt.